Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some Tales from the Squad Car. Our first story today comes to us from Honest Felon, one of the most honest DUIs ever. Let's jump right in. Doing a career change and getting out of the law enforcement officer work to do something a bit safer. Spending the evening drinking with a few coworkers of mine and sharing war stories. They all love the story about the most honest traffic stop ever. I'm watching a street near a downtown district where DUIs are common, spot a suspect who is clearly drunk. I pull him over. As I walk up to the car, I can smell marijuana. And as soon as I talk to him, I can smell the alcohol on his breath. Also, he's smoking a blunt. I'm kinda surprised by his relaxed nature, so I ask him if he's been drinking. He picks up his beer can and says, "Still am." I'm thinking, alright, typical drunk, who's honest. I ask him if he'd mind putting out the joint. He complies. I ask him for his license, registration, and insurance. He tells me he doesn't have a license and no insurance. Okie dokie. I ask him for an ID. He hands me his ID. But before I leave, he says, "Officer." I go, "Yes, sir." He asks, "Can I be honest with ya?" I said, "Sure." He goes, "You might as well just arrest me right now." I gotta admit, he does know where this evening is going, that's for sure. I ask him, "Why is that?" He goes, "I'm drunk, I'm high, I'm driving, I'm a convicted felon, I got coke and weed in my pocket and a pew-pew in the center console. I'm going to jail, I already know that." Bit nervous, I tell him to keep his hands on the steering wheel, nervous he might go for the pew-pew, which I hadn't known about. I radio for backup. He says, "Officer, I may be a drunk and a dumb butt, but I ain't an idiot, so don't worry." I ask him to step out of the vehicle and come around to the back. I conduct a search. I find a small amount of coke, weed, plus a knife. He did apologize for not mentioning the knife. I handcuff, put him in the back of the car. Honestly, I'm kinda surprised with how incredibly easy this arrest is going. This guy is facing quite a few charges and he knows it. My backup arrives, we search the car and find the pew-pew. It's loaded too, with a round in the chamber. I tell my backup what happened, and my backup is like, "Really?" I decide I'm gonna try and cut this guy a little break, and I ask him if he wants to call anyone to get the car. Normally, this would be a 100% impound, but Jesus Christ, man. He said, "Nah, go on and take it." So I take him in. On the ride over, I ask him, "Why were you so honest with me?" And he said, "I was getting arrested, you were going to find the crap anyway, so why waste our time? Let's just get this over with." Fair enough, I think. On the radio, he overhears his vehicle got picked up and he starts laughing. And I go, "What's so funny?" He goes, "That's my old lady's car and it's getting impounded." And I go, "Why is that so funny?" And he said, "I caught that bee effing my best friend. Now she's got to deal with her car being impounded, serves her right." I got a little chuckle out of that one. He was still going to prison, but he got his lick in. And that is the most honest traffic stop I've ever done. There's a couple ways to look at this one. You could think that maybe the guy was trying to cooperate so he would get a lighter sentence. Or, he's just been through all this before and he knows what the drill is, so he figures let's just get it over with. What do you guys think? Comment down below. Do me a quick favor and take a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're actually not subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. This next story comes to us from Two Blue Zebras. Some people don't learn. Let's jump right in. I was running radar on a 2-lane freeway, 65 mph limit. I picked up an Acura coming at me at 110 miles per hour, so I stopped it. I walked up to the driver, told her why I stopped her, and asked her for her information. She had her foot up on the passenger seat with surgical pins sticking out of it. I suppose it was broken and the pins were holding it a specific way while it healed. May I ask how that happened? I was in a crash, but I was the passenger. Okay, it's unprofessional to make snarky comments, so I didn't say anything about it. She got a ticket. After her day in court in a couple of months, her license would probably be suspended. 1 week later, dispatch to Unit 1, we have a crash with medics rolling, solo vehicle overturned. It was 5 a.m. on the weekend and no one was on the road. A solo crash like that meant they were probably drunk. Unit 1 was my partner, so I went en route to help him. He arrived on scene before me. Driver has minor injuries and a pre-existing injury. I arrived to find the car on its roof blocking the right lane, with the driver out and seated on the ground near my partner. The car was a nice, newer Acura. I noticed the driver had surgical pins sticking out of her leg. I pulled my partner aside and asked him, "What did she say happened?" She said she got cut off and swerved, then lost control. Cut off now? When no one else is on the road? I pulled her over last week for over 100 miles per hour. I figure it's more likely she hit that bump at over 100 miles per hour and lost it. At least she wasn't drunk, just a lead foot. No witnesses, no cameras, no damage to her car from any other vehicle. She was at fault regardless. I guess she didn't learn from her prior broken leg or the ticket I had written her. You know, OP, some people just don't think the way that you and I think. I'd swear that some of them are out to just try and get themselves a Darwin Award. This next story comes to us from Two Blue Zebras. Knowledge is power. Let's jump right in. Disclaimer, your local laws will vary. OP? Oh crap. That was my supervisor yelling for or at me. I walked into her office. Yes, ma'am? Did you and your trainee handle a parking complaint yesterday? Sure did. Explain it to me. Rewind 1 day prior. I had a trainee fresh out of the academy. Probably 2 weeks after getting his badge pinned on, we got a call for a parking complaint of a vehicle blocking a fire lane. This wasn't in city limits, so troopers were the cops for the area. We showed up to the scene. Sure enough, there was a red curb and a vehicle parked against it. This was in front of a house on a moderately busy street. No fire hydrant, and the street was plenty wide for a fire truck to get through. I asked the trainee, "What do you think we should do? We could probably ticket it or tow it." I looked at it a little longer, then I looked around the area. Then I said, "We can't do either of those." He was confused. I continued, "This isn't a fire lane. Fire lane has to say fire lane on the curb and or have a sign that designates it as such. A red curb alone doesn't do it. This car is legally parked." I looked at the house. I bet they're the ones who called it in and they painted the curb red so no one would park here. Let's go, we're done. Fast forward to my supervisor calling me in. I explained all of that. She continued, "Well, he's calling today to complain. He can't complain that we didn't enforce a law that's not a law. I'm not familiar with it. Print it out so I can call him back and explain it." Okay, sure. I went super deep into the law on this before because I thought I could tow it. The only exception is if he had written approval from the county to designate it as a no parking zone. I printed out all the laws and gave them to my supervisor. She called him back. After it was resolved, she called me in again. I called the guy who complained. I told him all the laws and told him about the county exception. I asked if he got a permit to paint it, and he said he would look for it and call me back. I don't think he'll be calling back. He never called back. It's interesting to me that the police didn't pursue this one any further because it's gotta be illegal for the resident to paint their curb red. I mean, you can't put down any kind of traffic control signage or devices on public roads to change the flow of traffic or the parking on that road. The major problem is, though, that they'd have to prove that the homeowner was the one who did it, and unless they had camera footage for that, that's just not gonna happen. This next story comes to us from Jolly Green Spartan. It was the one-armed man. Let's jump right in. Squad XXX and YYY report of a suspicious person at crappy apartment complex. Caller states there's a man on the roof of the building opposite hers. White male wearing blue jeans. Suspect has one arm. Please, 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 God, let this be real. We arrive and locate a white man wearing blue jeans on top of one of the buildings. He's gesticulating wildly with one whole arm and one stump that ends above where his elbow used to be. He's tweaking pretty hard and advises us that he's a subcontractor who was paid money to F with the roof. Yeah, okay, buddy. My partner and I climb up the stairs to the nearest balcony and coax Kevin the tweaker to us. My partner says, "Here, sir, let us give you a hand." We both reach up to Kevin. My partner gets an arm and a leg. I only have one leg. Kevin decides to send it before my partner is ready, and all of his weight lands on me. I catch him, but he smears his sweaty tweaker torso across my face. Yuck! I let him down to the balcony. "Hey man, are you armed? Any weapons?" "Oh, no sir." We get him ID'd and run him for warrants. Surprisingly, he comes back clean, and this is his home, so public intoxication doesn't really apply. Maintenance doesn't seem to care, so there's no report, but we are all 100% sure that we'll be back out here today. And we're right. While dealing with a BS 911 hang-up call later, I hear two of my area partners get sent back to Kevin's place. A while later, I hear one of them advise that this is a domestic and ask for crime scene to come out. Ruh-roh. I clear my call and head his way. Kevin beat up his wife and her father pretty badly. He's collected a handful of felonies and is in the wind. Kevin seems like the running around with his head cut off type, so we scoured the surrounding area. It's full dark, weak moon, with the temperature around freezing. We expand our search and advise other residents and nearby businesses to be on the lookout for a one-armed man, then head to dinner. Kevin will show up eventually. Squads AAA and BBB for a report of a possible sick person near address behind the crappy apartments. Caller advises she hears a man calling for help but can't see him. It turns out to be Kevin. He went into the creek and is now on the far bank going into hypothermia. The bank is too steep and the creek too deep for the officers on scene to cross safely, so my partner and I haul butt to a road that leads to the other side. We hop a guardrail, stomp through thorn bushes, and slog through a muddy swamp of knee-deep icy mud and water until we see the flashlights of our colleagues lighting up a lump. Show me your hand, get it up. I only have one. I know that's stupid. Show it to me. Kevin puts his hand up and I grab it with both of mine. Usually for a one-armed arrestee, you cuff their hand to a belly chain or a belt loop if you don't have a belly chain. Kevin doesn't have belt loops or shoes. We have about 200 yards of crap to slog through to get him back to the road and the ambulance. I lift Kevin bodily to his feet and put him into a full Nelson while my partner frisks him. You're under arrest. If you run, you're getting tased. I don't care. Please just get me somewhere warm. Easier said than done. Back through the freezing water and thorn bushes with Kevin crying the whole way. Kevin's about my height and says he's 15 pounds heavier, but he feels light as a feather. I have an iron grip around his good arm, and I'm half carrying, half dragging him back to the guardrail. A firefighter provides a lift assist, getting Kevin over the guardrail and onto a waiting stretcher. My sergeant surveys us covered in mud with torn up uniforms and tells us to go home 2 hours early on our Friday. Night shift is out and about. They can handle the calls. I was waiting at the end for Kevin to pick up a burglary or a theft charge, but I guess he doesn't want to be known as the one-armed bandit. This next story comes to us from Two Blue Zebras, a pursuit story. Let's jump right in. Attention unit, local PD is in pursuit, headed in our direction. Stolen truck doing about 90 miles per hour. It was early morning and we were all getting out of a briefing. That had about 5 of us in position. Generally, anytime the local police get into a pursuit on a freeway, they want us to take it over. They usually don't have radios that extend that far outside their city, they don't know the roads as well, and they're not trained to drive like we are. My partner and I were in 2 separate cars. We set up at an interchange between 2 freeways, waiting for an update on where the pursuit was going to. Dispatch updated, committed to head southbound. My partner took the lead. I took the backup position, and our supervisor jumped in behind us. Our other 2 units stayed nearby. The local police dropped out and let us take it over. We also had air support on the way. As far as pursuits go, this wasn't anything exciting. The truck we were chasing wasn't capable of going that fast. A few minutes into the pursuit, it started smoking and looked like something important had broken. Traffic was so light that the risk to anyone else was minimal, and the fleeing driver was doing an okay job of staying in control and avoiding other cars. A couple miles in, it looked like they might be giving up. They exited the freeway and came to a stop. Dispatch, vehicle appears to be yielding, but they weren't. They put it in reverse, did a 3-point turn, and went back onto the on-ramp. I moved into the lead position when they suddenly jumped a small concrete curb to go the wrong way on the freeway, where we just came from. I had a half second to make my decision, and I floored it to try and ram them. That half second was all my car's transmission needed to get confused, and I completely missed. Me, my partner, and the supervisor all stopped. The political reality is that if they crashed wrong way with us chasing them, it would be the police blamed. If they crashed without us chasing them, it would be the suspect's fault. And the reality of physics is that people driving wrong way on a freeway are far more likely to crash than if they're going the right way. So we were out. Dispatch, they just got on going wrong way. They're now northbound in the southbound lanes, negative units in pursuit. A random driver exited the ramp and yelled to me, "There's a truck going the wrong way." Our emergency lights were still on and I yelled back, "Ya think?" Fortunately, we had a couple units behind, one of which was able to get the freeway stopped. He saw the suspect coming his way at 60 miles per hour. He later told me he thought, "How do I ram this truck without dying?" He aimed for the rear as it went by but missed as it kept driving the wrong direction. The air unit finally went overhead. That let us follow it wrong way and back off to try and calm the suspect so they'd stop driving recklessly. The truck flipped around and went right way again, with only the air unit following. It eventually went out of my area and another area picked it up. Another 10 minutes in, and the truck's engine finally gave out. The suspect was luckily taken into custody without incident. I'm still stuck in this story at the part where they say a half second was all that my car's transmission needed to get confused. Is this not a perfect opportunity to tell the police stations that they need to be using Teslas because you have instant torque no matter what? There is no lag, and you can catch up to these people a lot faster. They're actually starting to become common at a lot of police stations, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of them in the future. This next story comes to us from Proper17. What were the chances of that? Let's jump right in. Night Shift 2016. Few months off FTO on a shift as the new guy. All the senior guys don't talk to me much. I'm always assigned the worst beat and not part of the group yet. Still learning the ways of proactive policing. Partners are getting proactive pew-pews and drugs and felony arrest weekly. All I can produce is misdemeanor warrants and suspended licenses. Release those fish back in the sea with verbal warnings. One night, around 0100, I finally clear my beat. Instead of chilling, I might try out this proactive stuff. I'm parked in a parking lot next to the driveway entrance near a main street to see what comes by. Just trying to be like my partners I looked up to. After a few minutes, a black Dodge Avenger flies by, no headlights on. My heart immediately races. I light it up right away and catch up to it. Vehicle surprisingly pulls over. Single male driver inside. He looks extremely nervous, hands are shaking. I'm still newer at this time, so I don't pick up on it. I do my 7-step and tell him he was stopped for speeding and no headlights on, and question him why he was driving so fast without headlights. Driver lets out a sigh of relief and has a generic excuse for speeding and said the car was new and thought the headlights were automatic. Something seems off though. I didn't know why he looked relieved. Get his license and was about to run him for wants and warrants. As I'm about to key up, beep beep beep, dispatch tone out. Something good must have happened. I turn my radio up to listen. Dispatch airs a carjacking in my beat right down the street from my traffic stop, no vehicle description. I'm awake now with the squirrel brain and immediately focus on the call, not processing why the guy is acting strange. Think to myself, oh well, can't win them all. Toss guy's license back inside the vehicle and tell him something on the lines of, stop driving like a dummy and I have crime to fight. Get to the scene and get victim statement and try to relay info to my partners on area checks. Victim is scraped up. She had an argument with her ex-boyfriend. She was in the driver's seat. Ex yanked her out of the car and got in the driver's seat. Victim holds on to car as suspect drives off through neighbor's yard and runs over a stop sign. Victim dragged a pretty good distance. I asked victim of the vehicle description and she tells me it was a black Dodge Avenger. My eyes widen and my heart sank. I asked her what did the suspect look like and confirms it was the guy I had pulled over a few minutes ago. I pulled over an in-progress carjacking suspect without realizing it and let him go. I've never felt more discouraged at this point. Get on radio stuttering because I'm in complete shock of what just happened and have my partners check the area, but the suspect is gone. Hours later, find the car abandoned. Suspect is easily identified and I write a warrant for his arrest and he's found a week later. It was a rough learning experience, but what were the chances of that? Well, OP, sometimes we all have to learn lessons, even ones that people will talk about for years and years and years afterwards. I can pretty much guarantee you the other officers aren't going to let you live this one down. Check out all 4 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.